Hello and welcome to another installment of the Homesick Heartache 8th Anniversary Tour. It's a little before midnight and I am in Bedford, Massachusetts at a cheap hotel, the Travelodge, that was a really good deal on Priceline. And I'm here mostly for Drew Terrell. You may know him as Andy Terrell, but I call him Drew, as I have for a long time. Drew Terrell's wedding. I'm in a standard nondescript hotel room. As you can see, I guess I should lift this arm. The art behind me indicates standard nondescript hotel room. I believe it's I don't know, pseudo wannabe, something like George O'Keeffe type thing. Ridiculous. Anyway, a couple of options I guess I had for reading a brief story as I'm on my way to reading and going to bed, and not really feeling terribly inspired right now, and don't really have a lot of road trip things to show you. Some of the feedback I've gotten about this series so far is that people want to see more road trippy things, more sort of what the open road looks like, some of the things I'm trying to also capture on the pictures I'm posting to Facebook. And so, there's some opportunities for that. Again, I'm using the laptop as a camera, so it's kind of hard to hold the laptop around, moved around, and display things, but I can give it a shot. So I'll work on that, but right now I'm ensconced in the East Coast and in sort of the urban Boston suburbs that are not particularly interesting to look at. So I got around to thinking, what was I up to a year ago today? And that's something that, with some of my theories of time, I'm always curious about and interested to see, because I have this geographic theory of time that if you've read anything on my webpage, if you're terribly familiar, you've probably seen some discussion of this, which is that time is also a place in addition to being time, because of the orbit of the Earth that a year represents going around the sun, and one revolution around the sun is, of course, 1 year, which means that you're in the same place, at least relative to the sun, if not in an absolute sense, and probably more or less in an absolute sense in space. There's a little bit of solar system movement, but more or less in an absolute sense in space. You are in the same location every time that the same time of year comes around. So thought I'd go back and check and see where I was a year ago today. And a year and a day ago, I wrote a very lengthy post on storytelling about where I was in terms of corporate America. So the other option I had, of course, was reading an excerpt from my recent novel, which is The Best of All Possible Worlds, about a hotel room. But for those, 4 of you who have read that novel, you may know that particular scene about a nondescript hotel room, and while gripping, I'm not quite sure I'm up for reading that particular passage tonight. So maybe some other time in a hotel room when I'm feeling a little stronger. This one from a year ago should be difficult enough as it is. And part of why I was thinking also about reading something from my blog is that I'm actually thinking about writing some pieces for the blog too. Obviously the writing has gone on hiatus because most of the energy that I would put into writing something has gone into these video productions instead, where I talk about my trip and talk about what's going on. But there's something to be said for actually writing things on the blog too, if for no other reason than YouTube may someday go down, or maybe some of you are in places where you can't quite get the bandwidth, although the only person who I know for sure at least claims not to have the bandwidth to be able to see videos is Emily, and I'm not really sure if she's following along or checking my webpage, but not to digress and get into that. So, we're going to go back to 28 June 2010, and I'm going to read where I was a year ago and a day ago on my way to LA. The title of the post is called Corporate America 10, Story 0. Yesterday was a good day to get shredded in the corporate thresher that is contemporary America. Lightly shredded people. It all started when I had this crazy idea that not only would I head to LA for DK's wedding and see some friends while there, but that I would rent a car in LA to help shuttle Pandora to her summer home in Altadena, as well as seamlessly move myself and some friends between Santa Barbara, Beverly Hills, Pasadena, and Marina del Rey. If you don't know the LA area, just imagine a couple East Coast states and picture yourself driving from the corner of one to the far corner of the other and almost everywhere in between. Got it? Good. So, night before last, I was staying in Philadelphia with my friends Ariel and Michael, who generously offered to put me up and drive me to the airport in the early morning for my flight to rent a car at LAX. And while an alarm didn't go off, I was awoken by the sun and plenty of time to pack up, get bitten by Pandora, get her into the carrier all the same, and prepare to embark for strangely less sunny climes. I was offloaded at the airport gate with about 45 minutes to flight time, cutting it as close as I'd like to, but certainly shouldn't be a problem for a domestic Sunday morning flight on the world's most easygoing airline, Southwest. So far, so good. Then I got in line for the Southwest counter. It seemed absurdly long for a Sunday morning, but I quickly realized that they had shut down half their check-in kiosks to compensate for being Sunday morning. No matter, I thought, for surely the friendly SWA attendants would soon be coming down the line to ask if anyone is about to leave on the next few flights and allow these people to skip ahead in the line lest they miss their flights and cause trouble for everyone. This is what happens in most SWA airports in my experience. But no one came, and the line dragged, and people cooed at Pandora and her carrier as she muled for release instead of moving up in the line. It was nice and social, and while I was getting a little concerned, I realized that the security line would surely be a breeze, and we still had time to make it. So I got up to the kiosk, took the requisite beratement from the guy behind the counter that I hadn't left 372 hours to make my flight and stand in lines, was told to hurry to the gate, and that my luggage might trail me by a flight or two. All fine, I thought, for I was renting a car. The power to return to airports for late baggage and such would be mine. Then the security line was a monument to inefficiency. They had all of 4 of their 15 scanners open, funneling people as slowly as possible through them, all while a propaganda video that attempted to explain arbitrary rules about liquids and shoes blared in the background. I wish George Orwell could have stood in that line with me, except that if he'd been ahead of me, I would have been even later than I already was. Needless to say, we didn't make it. Not by half. I even had to fight with the security guards over my attempt to transfer Pandora from her carrier to one of those ubiquitous gray plastic buckets to walk her through the body scanner. I understand why they have to scan her carrier in case I've lined it with plastic explosives, but do they really think I've had time to line their own gray bucket with same? No. They insisted on me carrying the cat by hand while her sensual perception of the world atrophied amidst the beeping, pinging, and clicking of the modern airport threshold experience. So I made it to the departure boards at 8:48 for my 8:35 flight. Apparently, as Russ told me later, when I, spoiler alert, did in fact make it to LA alive and in one piece, the expectation was that someone in my situation would start elbowing people out of the way, under the gruffly enunciated claim that my flight was leaving soon and I had a right to go before they did. I'm just not one of those people, though, so Pandora and I moseyed up to the Southwest Gate counter around 8:52. Take it I missed this one. Oh yeah. Well, what are my options? Let me check that out for you. Thanks. Pause, 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 pause. Looks like we can do 320. 320? 320 to Phoenix. Though you might not be able to make it out of there. It's 8:55. Yeah, sorry, that's the best shot we have. It's not looking good. So Pandora and I settled in for 6.5 hours of unfettered bliss in the Philadelphia International Airport. We visited 5 of their 6 terminals, sampled many of the foods, spilled many attempts to put in a little water cup in her carrier so she didn't dehydrate after hours of plaintive crying. I did get to watch almost all of Germany's thrashing of England in the World Cup, plus a little bit of Argentina-Mexico before finally boarding the plane, well after sending emails to those who were expecting me soon to expect me much later. At least I traded a long layover in Chicago for a quick stop in Phoenix, a city that is unequivocally on the way from Philadelphia to LA. Finally, LAX, with Pandora still breathing and even sipping a bit from the clear plastic Southwest cup I'd offered her. I kept waiting for her to be unable to hold it, desperately hoping it would be in the airplane or the rental car shuttle, not the rental car itself. But I finally got to the desk of the rental car company, looking to pick up what Priceline had promised me would be a Chevy Aveo or similar. You know, a car with 4 seats and a trunk. Are you planning on taking anyone else with you on your stay here? Well, I'll be the only one driving. That's not what I'm asking. Are you planning on having anyone else in the car with you? Well, maybe. I was going to pick up a couple friends at the airport. Not in this car. I can't let other people ride in my car? Well, I see you have some luggage. This is an economy car. Yeah? So? It's very small. Well, it has 4 seats, right? No, this is what I'm trying to tell you. Why I want to talk to you about it now before you get out there. It doesn't have 4 seats. I've rented economy cars before. They have 4 seats. Not this car. At this point, my mind is racing to what could possibly be going on with my vehicle. I'm entertaining the idea that they've somehow classified a Corvette convertible as an economy car. Can't even picture what they would possibly be going on. I think back to my contract with Priceline and the diligent research to make sure that golf carts or Hot Wheels could not be considered economy cars by mainstream rental companies, in this case, Hertz. It doesn't have 4 seats. No, honey, that's what I'm trying to say. And we can upgrade you to something with 4 seats. For how much? Just $10 a day. I was only paying $17 a day to begin with. This was not happening. The classic upsell. I was sure she was bluffing at this point, just trying to scare me like the dings and the dents and the insurance and everything else that corporate America uses to try to bludgeon one sale into an all-expenses-paid 4-star cruise to luxury for their profit margin. No thanks, I'll take my chances with this car. Okay, but can I offer you insurance for only $12 a day? No thanks, I'm good with the basic. How about gas? We'll refill your tank for $2.92 a gallon, and it costs $3.07 a gallon out there. Really? So however many gallons I'm short of a full tank, you'll refill for $2.92? Well, honey, not exactly. Here I immediately remembered Hertz's old O.J. Simpson slogan. There's Hertz, and there's not exactly. Make sure you choose the right one. Oh? You see, your tank holds $25.98 worth of gas at $2.92 a gallon. So if you don't bring it back full, we can take care of that for $25.98. Oh, I get it. So even if it's a dot down from full, you charge me $25.98. Well, yeah. Yeah, I'll bring it back full. Now, if you change your mind about when you bring it back, we can do the $2.92 a gallon thing. I'll bring it back full. Full proved to be a relative term for this car. I'm not entirely convinced it has a gas tank. As I approached the spot, 397, I was pretty sure there was no car actually parked there until I found the half car actually crammed in the front third of the space. It looked like this, and here the blog post has an actual picture of a smart car, which is like a car lopped in half, as I then go on to describe. A smart car. They had given me a smart car. A car that looks like someone took my Prius and lopped it cleanly in half, then painted it red. A car that had 2 seats and a foot-wide bench in the back for anything else one might want to carry. A car that, upon getting in and driving it to the checkout gate, felt like someone had built a small car-like shell around my person. Being the stubborn opponent of corporate America that I am, I refused to balk and return to the counter, but instead went on my merry way, trying to picture how I could get Fish and Madeline, to whom I'd pledged an airport pickup 3 days hence, to share the other seat in the car with minimum consternation and illegality. I quickly also became convinced that, A, the only reason corporate America had allowed such small, efficient vehicles to come to market was so that rental car companies could redefine the economy class into something no one could possibly picture when signing up to rent a car, and B, Hertz kept exactly one smart car on the lot as a bluff to customers who would all go traipsing back to the desk to get a reasonably sized vehicle for whatever upgrade price they wanted to extort. If nothing else, I was driving away their bluff, and the next person like me would have to be given a Chevy Aveo or similar. I soon, however, dispelled a myth I'd heard that smart cars literally could not drive on freeways. My little personal red pod had no trouble getting up to 65, though every 10-mile-per-hour jump felt like I was whipping a horse into gear, or perhaps shifting a standard transmission with my foot. The car actually rocked back and forth every time it went from 15 to 25 or 45 to 55. The trouble soon proved that, as irate as I was about the whole scam, I actually really enjoyed driving the little glorified golf cart. Parking is a dream, as are lane changes, and the turning radius would make it possible to do a U-turn in a one-way, half-lane Boston back alley. It's really quite fun. So I may keep my absurd little half car, depending on how game Fish and friends are, to share seats, or maybe even grab a spot of bench in the tiny, tiny back. The car feels like it would crumble in a strong rainstorm. but is about 3 times harder to hit than the standard vehicle, given that it's probably smaller all told than most motorcycles. So we'll see. Much of last night's rage has subsided into mild enjoyment of the novelty of being tailgated by cars that are literally a couple feet from my back. The moral of the story, I think, is that the distinction between capitalism and extortion has completely evaporated, and yet you may still enjoy the ride. That actually was the last day. This is the end of the blog post, by the way. The last day that I spent in my life with Pandora, so that makes it a little bit bittersweet. But hey, I'm still in a good mood, reminiscing about things. Had some good taqueria dinner at the old taqueria in Waltham with some current and former Brandeis debaters and coaches, and looking forward to seeing a bunch of Drew Terrell's friends and other people in the next couple of days. So we'll see how I hold up in a wedding environment and wedding experience. That should be an interesting contest. We'll see how that goes. Obviously a little bit trepid about that, but otherwise in pretty good spirits as I settle down. On day 5, about 500-ish miles in, there was also a request for a mile count. I think I'm at about 550 miles in to the Homesick Heartache Tour. So stay tuned, and we'll see you soon.